Live. All righty. Hi there. My name is Mary Minyard. I am an intern in the program. Uh, Today we're going to be recording video conference 2, a little bit about myself. Oh, my L number is 206-451-97. So we're going to start out with some introductions. My name is Mary Minyard. I am in my 14th year teaching, taught everything from 6th grade math, 6th grade social studies, and 6th grade science, so a lot of experience in 6th grade. I was in Frisco ISD for 13 years, and this is my first year in Friendship ISD, which is in Lubbock, Texas. So ladies, when y'all are ready, go ahead and share a little bit about yourself.
I'm Amy Cloud. This is my 11th year teaching, and I've mostly taught reading, language arts, all from 2nd grade all the way up through 8th grade. This is my 4th year in 6th grade.
Hi, my name is Paula James. This is my 8th year of teaching. Most of my teaching experience has been 4th grade math, a little bit of reading and math intervention as a para.
So this meeting looks a little different from our first one. We have 2 other teachers in our meeting, but they have other responsibilities, coaching duties, and then her husband is having surgery, so they're working on all the details of that. So I'm really glad to have you 2 ladies here with me. So we're going to discuss some meeting norms. Let's just focus on the topic at hand. Maintain positive intent and solutions. And then lastly, focus on intentional and attentive, active listening. So the purpose of our meeting today, the purpose of this practicum observation activity is to provide candidates, so that's me, with an opportunity to collaborate with faculty and staff to design instructional strategies that address identified gaps in student achievement. So we are going to work together to, like I said, establish an instructional strategy initiative to support our economically disadvantaged and at-risk students. After we talk about those strategies and what we want put into place, I'm going to start doing that starting next week. And then we are going to focus, after this meeting, I will focus on incorporating that strategy, but then also monitoring the progress of it, which will lead me into video conference 3. Okay, so in our first observation video, we discussed economically disadvantaged and at-risk students, the population of those students at Alcove Trails, and the struggles that they face, whether it's in the classroom and even outside of the classroom when they're at home with family. So today we're going to come up with an instructional plan to support those students to help close those performance achievement gaps. So the first question that I want to talk about with my team here is, have you noticed any academic growth among your economically disadvantaged students since our last meeting? And if you have, what does that look like? What are some observations you had? And how does that kind of shape where you're going with your instruction? So I'll go ahead and start us off. I'll answer my own question. So one thing that in my PLC with my other science teacher and an assistant principal, we discussed the importance of vocabulary and students having that kind of chunking it ahead of time. So I started doing that for Unit 2, which is our forces unit. So I gave students a list of vocabulary ahead of time, and I feel like simply giving it to them and having them look it over for 5 minutes, the second that they get that document, it's helped a lot, which has made me realize I needed to be doing this for every single unit. But even more than that, it's vocabulary that's academic based, but then I also even put in that vocabulary list, like an example is the word simultaneous. A lot of students, they have no idea what that word means. So I made sure to include that in the list. So not necessarily academic vocabulary, but just that regular day-to-day vocabulary. And that's helped a whole lot with students' understanding. But again, that helps a lot with those economically disadvantaged students that they have that quick access to seeing it. But it's all about getting them to actually look at it more than once. So that's something that I've done that has seemed to help them and support them. What about y'all?
I love that you said that because it goes right in line with what we're doing in RLA, as far as Hanson and I. So last year we noticed that same thing. There was a lack of the vocabulary that they didn't understand to be able to apply it to what we were reading. And so this year we decided we were going to front load. So our first unit was a fiction. And so we front loaded all the vocabulary and the concepts.
So for the entire unit, you gave the
Yes.
vocab.
And the concepts we were teaching, like the author's purpose. So we talked about author's purpose and what that means and the different ways to find author's purpose. And then we did central idea or whatever we're doing now. We're doing informational now. So we front loaded a bunch and now we're using that in context, if that makes sense. So, and it's been good. It's been very beneficial for them. Plus they have a notebook that they can go back to, they can use it. You know, I don't remember what author's purpose is. We'll go look in your notebook, you know, and so they've got it. And just a guide to help them. So
Okay,
that's one thing we've been on differently.
that's great.
That's been good.
So one thing that we've been doing that I've noticed that the kids have grown in is we're doing digital discussion boards. So I'll give the kids a question and they get to go and type their response, but they also get to read others and respond to others. So when someone like would say something, somebody would come back and go, oh, hey, remember, we talked about this. And so they're having these discussions and they're learning a lot more from each other than they're
Yeah.
learning from me.
Sounds like peers support, peers supporting peers, but in a almost like a live situation, digital situation. That's good. I love that. Okay, and looking at student information data from our campus's first TAPER report in the 23-24 school year, which is what we looked at in our first video. We previously, the first year Alcove was open, we had 432 students. But as of a few weeks ago, our current student enrollment is 676 students. So clearly we're growing daily. We have housing developments, all types of stuff going up around us, around our campus. And that obviously a growing number of students affects daily instruction. So with that increase in enrollment, which is also increasing our economically disadvantaged enrollment, when we start getting more students that are in that population move in, how does that affect daily instruction, just day-to-day happenings in each of your classes, or just the campus in general?
I just feel like we're overcrowded for the amount of teachers that we have. And so now when we get more and more and more, it's like, where do we put them?
Where do we put that?
You know, where it's a good environment for them also. It's not overcrowded.
Well, and I just feel like that high mobility of those low income families moving in and out, and you don't know their background, you don't know where they came from, so you don't know their foundational skills coming into your classroom when you're already in the midst of a 6 weeks or in the midst of a semester, and you've been working with your same class this whole time. Well, now you have new kids, you have no idea what they know coming in, and it's just a challenge.
So in a situation like that, have y'all done like a base pre-assessment of some sort for students like that are moving in when they first get to you, just to kind of see where they are, like kind of like a baseline? What do y'all do in kind of trying to figure them out when they come to you?
When I did fourth grade math, I had a pre-assessment that everybody took when they were new in my classroom. I don't necessarily have that for social studies.
So when you were doing fourth grade math, it was just like an all-encompassing, comprehensive?
Yeah, so a lot
Assessment?
of like just the end of year third grade skills for the most part, so I could
Just
see, so like beginning of the year,
Okay.
everybody took that, and so as new kids came in, I had them take that, just so I could see kind of where they were at from. end of year
Okay,
third.
so a previous grade level, just to kind of see how they are with those teats and those standards.
Like RLA is a little different than like math, because you can't just give it, this is what we learned this year. You know, it's always building and always spiraling.
Mhm.
And so really honestly, the best source that we've got is map testing. But if they're not here to do that, it's like, what do we do? So we've been putting them on IXL. There's a diagnostic in IXL.
Okay,
And map and IXL like talk to each other. They sync
Okay.
together. And so as far as finding skills that they need to be working on, that's very helpful. So, but we can put them on the IXL diagnostic.
nice. And they do that regularly,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yes, because I know in our Tiger Time, which is our advisory intervention class period, it also acts kind of as a study hall. Students are expected to work through math and reading, IXL, when all of their other work is done. So that definitely helps students, and especially those students coming from an economically disadvantaged background. So that's great. So what do you find difficult in meeting economically disadvantaged students' needs? Like, what's the biggest hiccup in helping you support them? Something that you wish could improve upon, so that way it makes everybody happy, so to speak. For me, I would say I'll answer my own question again. For me, I would say it's sometimes when they go home, they have, other responsibilities. So the only academic instruction and support that's happening is within school hours. There's nothing, it feels like with a lot of those students that when they go home, school is completely out the door. And it's almost one of those things like, how do we get parents more involved of these students? So that would be kind of my biggest thing in supporting them, is how can we get parents more involved?
I think, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Lack of personal motivation on their part. And honestly, I understand some of it. I'm sure, not being able to eat dinner that night is a bigger issue than
That
can I do my,
trumps.
can I read this paragraph, But yeah, so that personal motivation to really find themselves well. Yeah. It's okay if we leave it when we go.
Yeah.
But while we're here.
But while we're here,
I think for me, it's trust. Like, I feel like they don't trust as many adults, just because of bad experiences or things like that. And so
They don't trust you.
then
that's
their parents don't trust you.
It's an automatic
Yes.
mistrust.
yeah. So it's almost like they're coming to us with that wall already built, and it's just about breaking through that.
I think just even the rise of, which comes from that, like mental issues,
Yeah.
rise of all of those things are just exploding.
Yes, absolutely. So what are some strategies that you guys incorporate? And Ms. James, you can talk about it through your math experience. But what are some instructional strategies that you incorporate often in your room? So like tier 2 strategies that you work on with students, economically disadvantaged students. How might you incorporate that into a lesson? And you could give me a specific lesson that you have in mind where you did incorporate those either tier 2 or tier 3 strategies for these students.
Well, today we're reading a novel, Chasing Whitney's Solar. And so with my lower level or economically disadvantaged students, as we're answering questions, I have a very specific way that I want them to answer it.
Okay.
So we go back, we learn how to restate a question by using those words in our answer. And so with those kids, I'm walking them through step by step. Okay, this is how we're gonna do this, how are we gonna write this? And I'm showing them, modeling it on the screen so they can see it, and then they're trying the next one on their own.
Got it.
Or with the partner. So lots of that kind of modeling, whereas normally I would just be like, okay, restate, answer the question.
So it sounds like very guided,
Very guided.
very direct.
one of the things I always did was small group instruction based on CFA data. So we would do that CFA and then it would be like, okay, I have to pull this group because we have to work on this skill together. And it was, okay, we are going to take 3 steps backwards, relearn that, and then, okay, practice the skill if he's sitting right here. Instead of letting them go off on their own, it's like, okay, I've got to make sure that you've got that foundational thing before you can move on. So I did a lot of small groups based on my CFA just to make sure that everybody was where they needed to be.
So when you pull your small groups, talk more about what that looks like. So if it's in a classroom of 25 kids, what are you doing with the others that didn't need to be pulled for that specific team?
Typically I had choice boards, so they were still working on an activity. There was just usually an extension of some sort, or, sometimes they would record, like we used Flipgrid a lot, like record a Flipgrid video, and it would be like, okay, explain how you did this to a 3rd grader. And so they would record the video of that, or they got to make their own problems. So it was an extension, but they had a choice board. So they got a choice in what they were doing while I had this one. So
I like what you said, which is kind of leading to where I'm wanting to go with the strategy that we put into place, is I feel like this day and age, so different from when I taught 14, 13 years ago. It feels like student motivation it feels like it's kind of declining, and I almost feel that technology is partially to blame for this, and it's done such a disservice to kids because they're not able to adequately communicate and justify what they're doing, why they're doing it, and why it's important. And I like how you said that you had your students record Flipgrid videos. Flipgrid, that brings me back to a long time ago. But just being able to communicate in that way of why they're solving a problem the way that they are, but then being able to take it to the next level and communicate how to solve a problem to somebody of a completely different age. So part of me wants to try to incorporate that communication piece into science and, kind of figure out how to incorporate that and help these kids improve in that way.
You could have them maybe, if you were creating an anchor chart over this concept for a 5th grade classroom.
What were those
What
pieces?
pieces would you include on?
And that's something that I could do, with every because in our units, we have 3 topics typically, sometimes 4 within each unit. This unit, our unit 2 forces, it was only 2, super short unit. But yeah, I really feel that that's important, is having the kids do activities and not just singling out the economically disadvantaged students, but also challenging, the other populations of students to be able to communicate why they're doing something, but then also be able to write it. Because students are so used to, laptops, Chromebooks, devices, all the things that they've lost the innate ability to simply communicate. That's a big concern I have. And then it also is a concern for my own personal children, and I know y'all feel that too. Okay, got off the subject for a moment. So in our first video, we discussed the reading and math star scores of our Alcove Trails middle school students. So we identified that economically disadvantaged students scored below the district and state average in both math and reading in all 3 grade levels. I feel like this is something that we need to address. So you each come from a detailed RLA and math background. What is your initial focus? And I know some of these questions are kind of repeating themselves a little bit, but what is your initial focus in working with these students, specifically RLA and math related? Like what is that initial thing that you like to do with these students to help get them over the hump? What types of activities, strategies, whether it's instructional based, academic based, what might this look like?
I like to draw them in. I want them to be excited about what we're doing, or at least curious maybe about it, which sounds weird with the book, but the books that we've picked are very specific. They're very relatable
Okay.
to their life
Okay.
and what they're going through. So a lot of them are like, I don't like to read, but
But when
they
you
just haven't really
found that
found what they
thing
like,
that
yeah,
makes them
or that there
want
are
to read.
things out there that oh,
Yes.
I can see how, would apply to me. So we've been very deliberate about the books that we picked to read this year. And I've seen huge
Could you give an example?
buy-in for that. So the first book we read was Ghosts.
Okay.
And, we start off with, what do you think this book's about? Look at the cover, and they're all like, is it scary? No, not at all, Anyways, we talked through all of it and just draw them into it. And the very first chapter is a huge cliffhanger. Like it just stops at this point and you're like, what? So we like deliberately stop and don't read it for a couple of days because
So
they're like,
It builds that anticipation.
exactly. And so they buy in, they get excited about it. And I've never had a kid tell me they didn't like that.
And I love that because with a lot of students, no offense, Ms. Cloud, but RLA is,
It's hard, yeah.
it's
boring.
hard. It's a difficult subject to teach. Props to you. I could never do it. But it's also a difficult one to really, like you said, pull kids in, and just y'all's intentionality and what you're planning is what gets these kids excited about coming to school every day for that cliffhanger, that whatever. So I love that. That's awesome.
So some things I would do was, first thing I would do is we do an emotional check-in, like, hey, how are we today? Because if they're not there, then we're not doing anything. And then it would be, if we're learning a new like skill, I would just put it in front of them and be like, all right, let's see what you can do. And just to see if they could figure things out. And then we would go talk about, okay, hey, this table did this. What did y'all do? And so we would have that conversation, but it was always an emotional check-in first.
Yeah, that I feel like that emotional check-in is so overrated. Like, very few teachers do that, and I will throw myself under the bus. I feel like I could do a better job of that, of just meeting kids where they're at each day. Because with middle school kids, we know how their emotions are up and down and all over the place, and they react and are affected so quickly. So that daily check-in with each class period, that's good, and reminds me that I need to be doing a better job of that too, and being more receptive to these kids and what they're going through each day. Because I can build the relationship well over time, but it's just that initial daily check-in that I know is huge.
Yeah, we kind of do the same thing. I'll do what's your high, what's your low
Oh, love that.
from today. And even if it's not with me, tell your neighbor, what's your high for today? What's
Is
your low
that
for
something
today?
you incorporate every day?
Not every day,
But-
but randomly.
Yeah,
But it gets them thinking and talking,
yeah,
communicating.
the communicating.
But it
that's
also
what
helps
is.
me know because they'll share.
Yes.
They share. It helps me know what they're doing.
And how you can approach them, whether it's stern, strict, and approaching them in a softer manner. So I love that. So when you are tracking assessment scores for your economically disadvantaged students, what is like an achievable outcome that you would like for them, maybe in comparison to their peers, or what might that look like in each of your classes?
I don't really compare, I don't have them compare with their peers. It's more with themselves.
With themselves?
And so like we have a chart that they fill out and they can mark how they're doing on it, whether they're meeting, approaching, mastering, whatever. And so then they make a goal for themselves. And the goal is growth.
Yeah,
I'm like, even if it's 1
1
point,
point.
I don't care. Like, we're gonna show growth. You can do it. One more question. And it also helps them just see like, oh, I'm so close to, this.
So it
I just need like
motivates
2 more questions. Oh, and I could be a master, or whatever. So it provides them, it's intrinsic. It's not against anybody,
Yeah,
but it's growth.
yeah.
Is the point.
That was mine. It was in their math room. So it was in the back and they would shade it in every time of how they were doing so they could see how they were doing and see if they were growing. And we would always have growth parties. So like if you showed growth from one test to the next, then you got to participate in the growth party regardless of what it was. And you know, if it doesn't matter if you made a 20, if you did it better than you did last time, you get to go to the growth party. So
That's awesome. And was that after every like unit test?
every district assessment,
Every district
and then we did it
assessment
for map testing as well.
for map? Oh, I love that, especially because our map testing is 3 times a year, which are middle of year. Is it coming up or is that more like December, January?
Yeah, it's closer to just.
Okay. That's great. So I want to go ahead and start drafting up a plan that I am going to be using in my science classroom that addresses some stuff that we have talked about today. So I would love y'all's inside advice as to how I can incorporate this. So the goal is, I feel like RLA trumps math. And the reason I feel that way is because kids need to know how to communicate and write and read before, you know, we can master math. So my focus, going into video conference, the observation number 3 is to do like a weekly activity in my science class that has all students. I'm not just, you know, singling out the economically disadvantaged students, but all my students focus on writing and what might that look like in my classroom. So I feel like you mentioned, Ms. Cloud, you do a lot of like guided support. So you did that today in your class. Maybe me drafting up like a science prompt, but including like a sentence stem to kind of get the kids, get their feet wet, give them a little wind in their sails. But how can I track their growth in writing and science? What could this look like for me? Something that is easy to implement, but very effective in helping support these students. What are y'all's thoughts?
I feel like you could use the same graphic organizer that we use for writing, which is, we use the acronym TRACES.
Traces.
Yeah, and I can share it with you. You can.
What does the
It's the same.
T stand
So
for?
the T is where they would write their prompt, the question or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And then that's like their thinking box. And
Okay.
they highlight academic vocabulary, words that are important, that stand out, and we kind of talk through that a lot together before they do it on their own. So that academic vocabulary is really in there. So, and being able to understand what the question is asking, because if they can't understand that, then they're not gonna get it right. So that's huge. That's the first part of it. What did you have a question?
Oh, no, I was just gonna chime in, but continue.
ahead.
You're getting the ball rolling. So we in science have our next district assessment next week. That's over physics. So it sounds like starting in unit 3, which is our energy unit, I can start bringing in like maybe a short little prompt that's over what is thermal energy, and the kids being able to communicate and use this graphic organizer to
Yeah.
help them.
Absolutely.
And that's something that over time I could track the progress of, because we have, on our district assessments, we have writing prompts, which I know y'all will in social studies, and y'all have one coming up in a couple weeks too. So that seems something that would be helpful to implement, and I can't wait to get that going.
I like it too because I can be very specific for what I'm looking for. So like we could do a whole thing and we're gonna do lots of them throughout the year. But this time I'm looking to see, can they accomplish the R and A part?
So you isolate,
I isolate what I'm grading or
so that way it doesn't.
analyzing.
Right, so that way it doesn't also feel as overwhelming for the kids, and they're
Yes.
learning each part
Yes.
of the
So then by the
acronym.
end of the year,
They can
We've got
put
it
it all
down.
together comprehensively.
And then in social studies, we're just working on the R and D.
The R and the
When we
A.
had that, we had a professional development where we kind of talked about that and like focus on the R. So that's what we've been kind of doing and like.
Which
kinda
is,
Giving them that, restating that question.
and then answering it. How are your kids receptive as y'all done, how do they receive this when they know it's a day that they're gonna be writing? what does that look like as far as their mental ability goes?
I mean, you're gonna have some people that are whatever, but the more that they realize this is doable. This is not a huge 5-paragraph essay that I have to write over something. Like I can literally, 1 paragraph, answer this question. They're like, oh, okay, I can do this. Like, it's not so overwhelming. It gives them something to hold on to.
Yeah, I really think they're afraid anytime they hear writing, I think I'll have to do a full page.
Like an essay? Yeah. I feel like with my students, when I have those one-on-ones with them, they can voice their knowledge of science concepts, but it's the pen to the
Yeah.
paper
Yeah.
and writing it where that's where the discrepancy is. So I feel like this graphic that you guys use, graphic organizer, you said, right? This, in the fact that we can isolate the different parts of it, like you said, make it less overwhelming. And once the kids get a little bit of experience with the different pieces of it, it should be easy for them. Once they see that, oh, I can do this, this is not that difficult.
And I'm very specific about, they're gonna write their graphic organizer first. That it's written with a pen,
With
not digitally.
Handwritten. And then
Yes.
how do you incorporate?
Because I
the-
want them, like on the T, I want them writing down, like if there's a word, what does that word mean? Maybe put a synonym above it to help them understand the question. And they would write that. So, oh, that means this. And so they can reword the question for themselves to understand it. So after we fill that out, then I use Classroom Companion, which is an online site, and they go in and it will give them automatic feedback. And I can
Okay.
break it up into the sections, like I can put, this is the R, this is the A, and they can do each section different, like separately, and
Mhm.
it'll give them feedback or all together. It just kind of depends on teaching it.
I love that. That's
It's helpful,
great.
but they write it
But
before they type it.
They write it before they type it, absolutely. What is your grading policy on like spelling and grammar and all that with it? How does that come into play?
Writing, I don't really count off for spelling at all online, because it's embedded, and it'll show them,
Should be no
this word
excuse.
misspelled, okay. Then go, yeah, but we do have some students though, that's in their IEP that they don't get counted off for spelling, so it just kind of depends, but yeah. And normally I don't, if I can tell what they're trying to say,
Yeah.
but online, if they can go fix it, then they
Then
need to
there's
fix
no
it.
excuse.
Yeah.
Time, we're at 32 minutes. We got about 7 more. Okay, this is great. I love it. Giving me ideas. So since I am now going to start incorporating writing using this Trace's graphic organizer, how can I monitor the success and the progress of these students and their writing? How would that be achievable for me to, like you said, to see that growth over time? Because that's what's going to motivate these students. What is your best strategy, either of you, in helping me just to take the time and really monitor the progress? How might that look?
Honestly, for me, on Class Companion, I set it up using the rubric from STAR. So the way STAR grades it, so many points or whatever, I use that rubric to grade their traces.
And do the students see this rubric ahead of time?
They can see it, yes. And so then it's like, I think it's 5 points is what it is. And so they can see the growth, like, oh, I got 1 out of 5 this term.
Mhm.
I got 2 out of 5 this time, so they can see that growth throughout on all of the writings that they've done. So it makes it easier for me to go and look at and pull up
Yeah.
their,
So your
Data.
rubric is digital
Uh-huh.
because the kids are using Class Companion to submit digitally.
Right.
So that's how you.
we have them on paper too. I mean, they
Okay.
can see it,
Mhm.
but that's the one I use for Class Companion to grade it with.
To grade it with.
Yeah, like my kids were using that today to write the postcards. So I put exactly what was the expectation for their postcard today in there so that they could see. And so I gave them a couple of chances because it was really the first time we've done something that big. So they get to go in and then it gives them feedback so they can go fix it.
Yeah. Can you talk more about this postcard activity, what that looks like in your room
Yeah,
today?
so we're writing about, we're learning about North and South America, so they had to pick a country in one of those places, and then they had to act like research it and write to somebody like they were there. So the expectation were that they were writing about a site that they seen, what currency, when we had to talk about what currency meant, currency they use, what language they speak, and just some things that they noticed as they were visiting this place. And so they have to go through and write it to someone. And I told them it could be anybody. And so they have to write it, and we went over the expectations of your greeting. What does that look like? And then they just had all these expectations to follow. And then on the front, they had to draw a picture of whatever they like, their landmark or whatever they were visiting at the time. So some of my kids really struggle with even getting started. They don't know how to write a letter.
How to write a letter, which is why we're here talking today about writing.
Brings in point of view and all the.
Yeah, well, and we even
Oh,
talked about that. That was in their
yes.
rubric of it has to be first.
First person, them, they're there, they're actively. That's great. How did the kids enjoy the activity?
They really liked it. I mean, and most of them were really like researching, trying to make sure that well, what do they eat here? And so they talked about, they sat down at a cafe and, somebody talked about chicken. So, cause they were where they're at, but they were researching food. They were researching what the money looked like. They were very excited to get to do that because they got the choice in what they were writing about. So it wasn't, I didn't say, you have to write about this. They got to choose from all those places. So-
Yeah, it sounds like they were almost guiding their own learning through their research of different cultures and whatnot. That's great. Okay, so now that my goal is to start incorporating writing into my science class and try to do it at least once a week, how can I communicate to parents and families, especially of our economically disadvantaged kids, like getting them involved in what I'm doing in the classroom regarding writing and science and being able to voice their knowledge of the content? Is there something that I can send home through Remind? So my campus, we use Remind to communicate with parents regarding all the things. So how can I maybe, send a message here and there involving what I'm doing to kind of get them to understand what we're doing in class, but the why behind it and the why it's important? What are y'all's thoughts there?
Like a question of the week.
Oh, like hey, have this conversation at
Yeah,
home with
like
kids. That's
See
great.
if y'all can discuss this and figure out what, or whatever. Can your child teach you this or
I love that.
question of the week?
Question. Yes, that's great. Because I know parents, and I mean, with Remind, it's so easy. It's not like they have to intentionally go check their email. It
Right.
comes through like a text and they're at the dinner table, whatever, and can immediately start having those conversations.
Or it's like a fun question for them to go
Research.
and figure out and be able to come back.
To come back and already
And tell
be
you,
a kid that
Our family
knows.
found it, or whatever. I like that.
That's good. That's really good. Let's see. So going into my last video, which I said that I'm going to incorporate reading and writing in science and do it with fidelity. What are some logistical issues that I could potentially face in supporting these students with reading and writing? Like, what are some things that you guys think that I might run into that could be an issue in supporting them?
Absences.
Absences.
Being
Okay.
gone, or like being pulled from your class for something. That happens a lot.
So being pulled for dyslexia or whatever. Yeah, that's very true. So just not having them in our
Not a
rooms,
consistent.
the consistency of it.
Maybe just the resistance of them to write. I mean, that might be hard and
I mean, and I feel like if we're writing all over the place, they're not.
Yeah, that's true, because I feel like in the state of Texas, or probably across the country, it's such a push, especially in all content areas, but I mean, even in the elective areas, our campus is pushing for writing to happen too. It almost feels like we need to stagger days. Like if RLA is writing one day, science will make sure not to. That way the kids aren't just fatigued.
And even to, instead of, like, just for a different type of assessment, instead of them writing it, have them do a video of themselves explaining each
Communicating.
one.
Okay,
And say it instead of writing.
so I need the written communication and the verbal communication about concepts. That's
Change it up maybe.
the changing it up. That's perfect. I love that.
Some kids are better writers, some kids are better speakers.
Communicators.
I'm a better
Yeah.
writer than I am a speaker.
I'm a better speaker than I am a writer, so we all have our strengths. Okay. This gives me lots of ideas. So to end our meeting today, the focus is we've decided that I'm going to incorporate more communication pieces regarding science concepts, but then also the written pieces. So that's what I'm going to start doing next week. And like I said, I will do it weekly. That's the goal. And I will continue monitoring the progress of how all students are doing on it, but specifically those economically disadvantaged students, and just kind of help them grow and learn and grow in their confidence in reading and writing, specifically to science. So that's our goal going forward. Ladies, thank y'all so much for your time, and we're done.